Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome back to the Rod Shop. Today we are doing desert camo accents. Stick around. All right, so I got to get on this rod. I'm gonna take you through every step of this. Video might get a little long, so just go watch something else if you're not interested in finding out how to do desert camo on a rod, or at least finding out how I think we're going to do this desert camo on a rod. So first thing we need to do is we have a hood on this reel seat, CAT G2 Vibe. That is Vibe. We're going to pull this reel seat forward. I'm going to grab some tape. I am going to put a layer of tape down on a blank here because this thing is going to turn for days before we're done. And I don't want to scratch the blank. And I don't want to damage the hood and the lockdown nut. So we're just going to slide it in here, make it enough tape over the blank to cover the whole thing, and then we're just going to come back the other direction and tape it down to the blank just to make sure it stays there without flopping and rattling and rubbing and all that fun stuff. So let's just make sure with another piece. Second, we're going to need to put down a base layer. So I think with the hook keeper up here and a label up here, probably we're going to run camo out. Shoot, some of my stuff is missing. That's out there where I've been working on that silly boat project. Hang on. Found it. And I know who misplaced it. That would be me. All right, so I'm going to take this length here. I think, let's do it in metrics, easier to calculate. 120 millimeters. Right out here, 120 millimeters is not long enough to do what I want to do. We're going to run out here about 150. I'm going to take a piece of tape. I like the 150 length. We're going here. And this is just the end of this accent marbling we're going to do. So got my little tag there, so when we put the base layer down we can peel that off and we get a nice clean edge somewhere, clean edge of epoxy and marbling. All right, now colors. So I'm using the wind grips in this tan camo pattern, which I do like these grips, especially on a lighter weight rod. They're just very sticky in the Florida heat, and they don't deteriorate like cork would. So, trying to match these colors, I'm using some marbling pigment from Voodoo and from CRB, and I'm going to blend some custom colors to try to match this. So let's get some epoxy down. This is likely going to make a mess. I'm going to try to keep from completely covering my power wrapper base with epoxy, and hopefully it'll cover me. Sporting the new Swamp Cat shirts, just came in, got FDX down the sleeve here, a little AE fishing on the back. So let's mix up some epoxy. All right, D2 Diamond 2 finish. You guys know I always use it. I did a video about a couple weeks back where I talked about different epoxies. Again, I just want to reiterate, it's more important that you find one you like and you use it consistently. Got my syringes. I'm going to mix up about probably 4 cc's of each. So this is white cap. And maybe the syringe is stuck. Oh, there we go. And this stuff is thick because it's cold in this rod shop. I had it turned down to the high 60s. I don't like that at all. Hang on. Here's a very valuable lesson for you guys. Always have backup epoxy. I don't like the way part B is pulling, and I've got quite a bit left in there, and it's got to go. If you ever are concerned in the least about your epoxy, throw it away, because it is not going to work out for you, or at least it hasn't worked out for me. So alright, so I got a new batch of epoxy here. Put my inserts in. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a black magic marker, and I'm going to mark which part is the black cap. Which syringe I'm going to use black cap all the time. So, and just as a side note, I had a question about epoxy, about 6 months ago, where they were having issues with it not curing properly. And what we figured out was the guy was just trying to be super clean, so he was cleaning his syringes after each use with a solvent. I think he was just using alcohol. But what you do not ever want to do is introduce anything in these syringes other than epoxy. As long as you don't mix them up and use the same syringe on both parts, you're fine. I have done that in the past. Again, that doesn't turn out well either. You wind up throwing your syringes away. So I got my inserts. I'm just going to pop them in here. There we go. That is black cap and black syringe always. And there's a black cover that I'll keep on it always. One part won't set up. If you ever get them mixed with your syringes are done. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. Let's get our insert in the white part. All right, let's try this again. Now, for some reason, and I have no idea why, when I mix epoxy, if I put the black part A in the cup first, it mixes with a lot less air bubbles. If I do the white part first, the part B, you have to fight bubbles. So I'm going to do 4 cc's of the black. Thought I just messed up. I just wipe the tip of the syringe off, put the cap on it, put the black cap bottle away so you don't grab it and use it again. I have done that before where I got sidetracked, wasn't paying attention, and apparently I put just 2 of the same part in and it never sets up. You wind up having to wipe it off and start again. Alright, there's 4 cc's of the white part. And honestly, until you start mixing it together, it's going to stay pretty separated in your mixing cup. So your clock doesn't necessarily start as soon as it touches each other. You got to mix them thoroughly to start the reaction. Okay, got a mixing stick. Start my clock. And I'll see you guys in 3 minutes. Okay, that's been about 2 minutes, but since we're going to add pigment to it and we're going to keep mixing, I'm going to start adding a little pigment, and I'm going to try to get I'm using this Dijon mustard color to try to replicate that, but I'm going to cut it with some white pearl. Hopefully to tone it down a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to throw a little Dijon in there. A little mustard. I'll get that mixed up, see what that color looks like. Looks like mustard. So that's quite a bit darker than I want that base coat to be. So now, we'll put a little white pearl in there to try to thin that color out a bit. Let's see what that does. Now we're cooking with Crisco. All right, now we're getting close. Might have went a little too light, but I think I want to hit it with a little bit of the saddle leather to darken it just a pinch. Guys, should have paid attention in art class. I wish I had of. Just a pinch of the brown, because that brown pigment will make it dark quick. I don't want to go too far. There we go. Now that is the color I want to start with. It's a little dark, but on the blank, it's somewhere in between the two colors here. So, brush time now. Let's put all the lids back on so we don't have an accident. I got a brush, typical, none special, cheap hobby brush. I think I picked those up. I don't know where I bought those. I buy them by the 25 pack. So I'm just going to cake it on for now. I want to color up the dark blank. Now it's going to run. That's why I put the paper towels down. Alright, I got a base coat on that. It's not thick enough yet, but we'll fix that here in a minute. But you got to keep turning it while it's sitting there, or it's all going to run off. I mean, I could put it in dryer mode. Might be a little easier, but I like handling it by hand, especially when I'm starting these big marbling areas. I also probably will throw in my first part of my epoxy ramps with this color. Now, if I was doing just a normal marbling job and I wanted it to just marble in, I would just, start mixing my other pigments, and they would, as I added them to the base layer, they'd start to swirl. But I did that on the test one I built for myself, and it was too much of a swirl. It was a great looking blank, and the color on it is awesome, but it's not the look that I was going for. So we're going to try something different this time. What we're going to do is we're going to let this base coat get close to setting up completely. Still going to be tacky. I'm going to let it go for about an hour, and then we'll come back and start with some other colors. So you could let it go completely dry if you didn't have time to wait and then come back the next day and do what we're going to do in the second part. But I think I can pull this off in just one coat. At least get the colors I'm looking for. If not, we can just keep adding colors later. So I get this like I want. This is a special request from a Desert Storm vet, and he wanted a Desert Camo themed rod. And I think I showed you guys the sample of C-Deck I had. I've got a box of 7 sheets in there out in the garage now that is going on the Stratus 201 rehab project when we get to that point. We're not there yet. We're still fighting with gel coat and learning how to do gel coat. And honestly, I'm learning it the hard way. Because we had some problems. We got it fixed, I think. So we'll see tomorrow if it's hard like it should be. All right, so now we're getting there with what I want it to look like. And it's starting to run perfectly. I'm going to add some more back here. I didn't get enough on this part of it. Now, if you want to do a marbling job and you don't want it to run as much, just put a clear over whatever base you're going to have. If you're just going to use the blank as the base color, that's fine. Just clear over it. But the more that you want it to run in marble, the thicker your base coat needs to be. And then you need to get right in your base coat with your accent colors as soon as possible. If you want it to run less, you have a thinner base coat, or you let the base coat set partially before you start adding your colors, and it won't move around the blank as much. Just really depends on the finished look you're going for. So I'm about to the point now where I'm going to put it in dryer mode and just let it turn for a bit and start setting it up. We are 7 minutes into the set time on this. I started mixing about 9.5 minutes ago. But back to the point of knowing your epoxy. I know I've got about 15 minutes from the time I start. If my rod shop is at 70-ish degrees, that from the time I start my mixing to the time I would have to put heat on it to get it to move the way I want it to, I've got about 15 minutes. Now I can manipulate it longer than that by throwing some heat. And when you add pigment, it slows it down a little bit as well. But then when it goes off, it goes off. It's done. So it's timing. Everything I've ever talked to you guys about as far as epoxy, and especially with the marbling, it's all about timing. And when you get to know your brand of epoxy and how it behaves, that's way more important than which particular brand that you are using. So I like the D2. A lot of people, at least a lot that watch this channel, like the D2, but that doesn't mean the D2 is better. I just like it. I know how it performs. Like I can manipulate the fall right here. I probably can't see it from the camera, but I've got a leading edge of this candy pearl, and it's rolling right there. And I'm watching it on the side of the blank here and controlling the roll of it. And then I know where I've got too much epoxy because it's the leading edge of that roll, like that bubble right there. And I don't want to really try to spread it the way I normally do if it's just a solid color, because this color is thin and I'm trying to cover up that dark blank in one coat. If I did 2 coats, it'd be a little easier, but I think I can do it in one. We'll see. But you can see right there how it was falling around, so I'm going to pick up that point and spread it a little bit. Let it go back to its normal fall. Pick it up again. And then I can see where the front part is falling at a different rate. This section up here, I got some holidays. But I think that'll be fine with the overall effect by the time we put the other colors in. But this is where the epoxy stuff is not science. It is art. I mean, you got to make sure parts right, but as far as overall final effect, it is a guess pretty much every time. And usually they turn out pretty well for me because I have got a big drip. I have done enough of these and I get a pretty good idea of what the outcome is going to be, but I'm still surprised most of the time. Usually pleasantly surprised, but because the natural behavior of these materials is a whole lot more creative than I could ever be in my brain. All right, so now we're running and we're dripping. I am going to put it into dryer mode, and this epoxy is cooking off now. We are 12 minutes in. I'm going to hook up to my dryer motor and go into dry. I'm starting to get that look. So now while this is kind of starting to set up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up another small batch. I'm going to color it with some black, midnight sky or night sky black. I'm going to use the marbling mud, which I get from Voodoo Rods, and it is actually called mud. It's marbling mud. You go to the Voodoo site, it's in the epoxy products. That's the only place I found it. Honestly, I haven't looked many other places because once I found it, that's the stuff I've used. So I'm going to pitch this. Lay my hands. Grab another mixing cup. I'll get a couple. Couple more brushes. Now, normally when I do mud marbling where I've got it really thick, I'm going to put it on with a stick. What I'm going to try this time is I'm going to take one of these brushes, and they're really floppy. I'm going to cut about half that off so I get more of a stiff bristle brush. And I'll have thick epoxy and a thick stiff brush and hopefully some thicker epoxy for a base coat. Okay. So we'll let that turn for another probably 10, 12 minutes. And then we'll start adding some more color to it. So don't go away. Okay, we're back, sort of. I was thinking that while I'm waiting for this to set up just a little bit more, I would answer some of your questions. Where are we going to start? Where are we going to start? Hey, let's start with the pedal. Okay, so you guys know that I have a Pac Bay wrapper and Alps wrapper. Actually, I have two Alps wrappers. That one of them Nathan has now. And then I have my CRB Pro Gen 2. I didn't like the Gen 1 because I couldn't do this. It did not have a dryer motor built in. The Gen 2 is much better in my opinion, only because I have the versatility. The problem, I never really liked the pedals on the Gen 1 or the Gen 2. And when my pedal on my Gen 2 finally bit the bullet and it was flipping out, and I called Mudhole, they're like, all right, can you shoot a video of it and tell us what it, so we can see what it's doing. So I did that. I thought it was the pedal. They thought it was the motor. So they sent me a brand new motor. I just plugged it up. I didn't take it out. It was doing the same thing. And what it was doing is you could not adjust the sensitivity. It was on or off. It was like a light switch. And it did that like, boom. It was okay one day. It never was great. It was okay. and then it went to crap. So they sent me the motor. I plugged it in. This motor did exactly the same thing that motor was doing, so I eliminated it. It was the motor, it was the pedal. So then, in the meantime, I needed to use my wrapper, so, and I know I like the pedal on my Alps wrappers, so I stole one off. One of my other power wrappers, not that one. And it is the best pedal I've ever had, and here's why. The new pedals that they put with the CRB Pro and some other wrappers, they're a single stage fader pedal. Now, that's fine if you don't need micro control, and you guys have seen me wrap, and I use the pedal more as like a power assist. So all I got to do is just light pressure and it spins. So I need really fine motor control most of the time when I'm wrapping guys. Now, if I'm just doing a big under wrap or something, it doesn't matter. So I started doing some research on pedals. And what I found out is the YDK model YC-50N is a pedal that your grandmother had on her Singer sewing machine. This is a two-stage fader where you have light control. Let's see if I can demonstrate without messing up another rod or the one I'm working on, and put my Alps into wrap mode. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm talking about. Maybe. I wasn't set up to do this video today, but I figured what the heck. We're all just sitting here waiting for epoxy to dry. Might as well talk about a few things. Alright, I go into wrap mode. That's the wrong pedal. This, with the blue tape on it, is my Alps pedal. So I'm going to turn one of these cameras. I'm going to try doing this one. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. So with this pedal on about medium speed on the dial, I can do that with it. And it is barely moving. And then if I add a little hand pressure, it just rolls quickly. Or I can go full. I've got that turned down or wide open. But I run it about medium all the time on the dial, and then I don't have my shoes on when I wrap. I use my toe. I learned that from my grandmother because I watched her sew many things. But this is the same pedal. Now this pedal was hard to find, but that's what I'm talking about. Just absolute minute control. Probably I can get it to somewhere around 1 RPM. We don't have a minute to waste, so yeah, I can get it down to maybe 1 RPM where the thing is barely moving. Anyway, this is a great pedal. So where do you get them? Well, with some research, I found them. And I found them at a rod room. And it is, it's an RW-1 pedal. When you go to rodroom.com, this one was $32 plus freight, but it was worth it to me. I still have my, I guess a Pac Bay wrapper is the one that's out there on the dirty side. I still have that one with no pedal on it. I'll put this pedal on it, or I may put, because Muddle did send me a single stage pedal that goes with this power wrapper, and I don't need fine control out there because usually I'm just turning cork. So I'm turning at a pretty high RPM, so I'll probably put that pedal out there and everything will be fine. But if you want to get fine motor control over your power wrapper and you don't have the YC-50N, then this is the solution to your power wrapper issues. All right, so that's the first question. And let's turn that back off. Get this pedal out of the way. Get this pedal, that's my spare right away. Out of the way. Where's the box? There it is. That was question number 1. How to fix your pedal. I'll stop this and see how much it's running. It's not quite ready yet. Question number 2 is from Bob, and that was burnishing properly. So I guess in a video I was talking about, it's when I was talking about the epoxies. I talked about burnishing properly, and Bob wanted an explanation for that. So, burnishing properly is it follows. 1, when I'm using D thread, and D is a much larger diameter, so when you put 2 things of large diameter together next to each other on a blank, you have this, the V. Now, the way to get rid of that with D is pressure, because you can actually, if you're using the nylon D thread, whether it's Fuji or whoever's, it doesn't really matter. The CRB, Pro Wrap, I use a lot of Pro Wrap. I just happen to like it. And I don't know where my burnishing tool is. Nathan, where's my burnishing tool? Oh, there it is. Nope, it's not there. Anyway, this is a tool that I have started. The one I'm looking for, and I don't know where it is. Again, this rod shop is a mess. It's around there somewhere. Nathan uses the yellow one that you get in the kits, the one that looks like it's plastic, but it looks like bone. The way I do that is I hold the rod so I don't get a lot of flex, especially when you're towards the tip, and it's down pressure, but it's down pushing towards the middle of the wrap, and then down pushing back towards the middle of the wrap from the top. So you're flattening them out, and then you tighten them up, and then with a really thin coat, first coat of epoxy, that's where you get your flat look. This, I honestly don't know where I bought this. I don't even know what it's called. I've been looking for it. If you guys know what this is and who sells it, put a comment down below, because I want to buy another one. This is awesome for moving threads and for burnishing. I don't know if you guys can see, but it has a split in the tip. And I don't know what it's supposed to do, but what I use it for, you guys can see that split, is I can pick a couple threads and move them, and then up and pick another couple threads and move them and really get them packed tight. And then I use the radius, the round part, as the burnishing tool. Smaller diameter is going to give you more point pressure, so I can get them flatter. But anyway, if you guys know what this is, let me know. That is Bob's question to what is properly burnishing. That's my opinion. That's my term. I didn't learn it anywhere. I might be completely wrong about how I do it, but I like the way things look, and so do my clients. All right, the next question, because I'm going to give this a little more time. I want it pretty stiff. Devil of a time holding small eyelets. Well, let's talk about small guys, but actually, let's hold that one. When I start wrapping this, I will show you a couple techniques to hold small guides until you get them wrapped, or as you wrap them, even down to micro guides. I struggle with them because of the neuropathy in the hands, but I figured out a few ways from either watching other people on YouTube, because yes, I do watch a lot of videos still. I learn stuff all the time. And then taking what they said and practicing and modifying their technique to fit me better. So anyway, we'll get to that one. The pedal, we already handled that one. Post a link. Nope, that's not a question. Well, I guess that's all the questions I got on that list. So let's get back to doing this camo. So I want to check where my epoxy is, and I'm just touching it, and it's denting the surface just a little bit, and then it lays back down flat. So that epoxy is not quite ready yet, but by the time we get everything else mixed, it may be. So let's get set up and mix. We're going to put some black down next. How do I want to do this? Yeah, I need a different mixing stick. Okay. So let's mix up a couple cc's, and I know I've always told you don't mix up less than 3 cc's unless you're really, 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 really careful. And I'm going to be really, 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 really careful because I don't need much black. So black part A first. I'm going to pull 2 cc's. Pull 2. And the reason that you don't want to mix small batches of epoxy is that the smaller the batch that you mix, the bigger the chance of error in your 50-50 mix ratio being 100% on. And if you don't get your epoxy right, it's going to give you a fit afterwards. But with practice, you can get really good at mixing exact amounts. I don't ever mix less than 2, but I don't need much black epoxy for this accent, so I'm not going to mix much. In fact, I'm probably going to split it into 2 different cups and do 2 colors at the same time. So let's get epoxy stuff out of the way. In order to save a little bit of time, I'm going to do Night Sky, and I'm going to try this liquid bronze to see how it looks. I think that's going to closely match my darker color in my grip here. So we need another cup. Start the clock. Start mixing. Let's do our initial mix here. See you in 3 minutes. What else can we talk about? Oh, there was another question. We'll give us a second. Let's mix this. Hang on. I had an email question. Let me get to the emails. FDX. That was just a thank you email from Rick. Appreciate it. Says learned a lot from my videos. Epoxy ramps. No more dealing with winding checks. Looks the NFC blanks. D-size thread. So you're welcome, Rick. Thanks for sending me a question, or at least a comment. I appreciate that. I guess maybe I answered all those questions in email. Oh, the other one that comes up quite a bit is my label maker. And I have the OK Sun Pearl 360, which they don't make anymore. But Epson does make a replacement for it. There is a link down in the description. If you scroll down, it'll say label maker with a link to the Amazon site. You buy it from Amazon, they send me a few pennies. If you don't buy it from Amazon, I don't care. Like you guys know, this is not a money-making venture for me. But as far as label tapes go, I'm using not that one. Mostly what I'm using is the 1/2 inch colored on clear. So it's either black on clear, white on clear, gold on clear. I can't find silver on clear anymore. I haven't found it in a couple of years. I'm finally out of it. So if you guys run across Epson label tapes that are clear or silver on clear, please let me know. I'd really love to have some silver again. White works in a pinch where you would use silver. But yeah, so 1/2 inch. This is black on clear. PX tape. And it's not the super sticky, super adhesive one, because you don't need that. You just need it down flat on the blank. No air bubbles until you get epoxy on top of it. Okay, let's finish mixing this. In another minute or so. All right, I'm going to split it in half. I'm going to put half, or about 1 cc, into my other mixing cup. Don't need much. Okay, so now we're going to color. So one of these is going to be black. Night Sky is the Voodoo pigment color, and it won't take much to turn that into complete black. And then we're going to do one with liquid bronze and see what that color looks like. I think it's going to do what I want it to do. It may be a little shiny. I may have to knock it down with some black, but we're going to start with just liquid bronze. And they come with these little scoops, but I never use them. I just use my X-Acto knife. Just the way I've always done it. And then I just wipe it clean so I don't contaminate the next container. Alright, so Night Sky looks pretty good. Like I said, it didn't take much, and it is jet black. Okay, now let's see what this liquid bronze looks like. A little bit orangey, not bad. So instead of putting more pigment in to knock it down, I'm going to put some pre-mixed black in there just a little bit at a time to knock it down. Just whatever sticks on my mixing stick here. And that's a subtle change, but it took some of the orange out of it. I think I like it better. Still not thrilled with it. Let's go another direction. I got saddle brown here somewhere. That's liquid bronze. That is saddle leather. And it definitely has some orangey in it, but hopefully it does what I want it to do. Just a pinch. There we go. That knocked the orange out of it. Now we got a brown. Alright, so we've got two colors of epoxy mixed here. One is a brown, which I like. One is a Night Sky, which I use on a lot as a accent color when you're doing epoxy marbling. You can go back over what you've already marbled with black, and it really looks great. We're going to open up the marbling mud. I'm going to use a stick. I want to cut another brush too. Alright, I got two stick brushes. I got two mixing sticks that are clean-ish. I'll do one at a time. I'm going to do the black first. Well, that's saddle leather sticking it up on its own, but I'm going to take just a little bit of this marbling mud. You don't need much in these small quantities because it'll get stringy on you and it'll do it quick. And I got just a little bit on the stick, and I'm going to quickly mix it in, and I'm going to turn my mixing stick up against the side of the cup to get the marbling mud off. And so now my epoxy doesn't drip. It's not stringy. I don't want it that stringy like when I do the crazy marbling stuff with the mud. I just want it to not run, and that's where we're at. So this is where the rubber meets the road. Short brush. I'm going to just kick the belt off of my dryer / power wrapper here so I can control the turn by hand. Now I have control of the movement of this, and I don't want it running too much. I'm just adding some similar accents to what's in the grip as far as, you know, shape of it. You see it's starting to get stringy, which is really what I want. I'm going to pick up some I've already put down and just kind of dab at it with my brush to get it to move. All right, that's pretty good on the black. See that if I go to just my base layer, it grabs my brush, so it's the right consistency, I think, to pull this off. And what I'm doing is I'm just looking over here and kind of picking up, you know, patterns and then trying to duplicate them. All right, let's run up here to the top. And a hole there. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just taking it and just kind of mirroring what I see in the grip. And it's getting really sticky here in the cup now. You can see it's coming off the brush a little stringy now, which is fine because I want some of these finer details in here too. I can just drag it. And now I'm going to put it back on the dryer while I'm getting ready with the brown component. All right, so now we got brown to do. Clean that mixing stick up. I'm gonna leave that black there. We may go back to the black, but I'm not sure yet. We'll just see how it lays. And just a little bit of the marbling mud. Let's put the cap back on that. Same thing, it's not stringy yet. It's also not running off my stick. So let's throw some brown in with our other little short cut brush. All right, kicking it back off the dryer so I can control it again. All right, same thing. So we're gonna go a little different. A little different direction. And crossing them up. Now, this may not be the last time I play with this coloring. What I might do after this sets is instead of going in on a thick base, I'll go in on a dry, no base, with some of that original color. If I think I've got too much of my accent colors in there, which I don't think I do at the moment, but we'll see how it turns out when it finishes drying. Because it is going to turn and marble a little bit. That's just the nature of the beast. but with some sand color. I got a really nice tan sand thread we're going to be using. I'll get you that color when we start wrapping for the guides and the accent trim wraps. I think it's really going to pull this all together. But that's pretty much it for camo marbling. It's all about timing. It's about knowing how your epoxy is going to behave. And it's about having a lot of patience. I mean, I know if you're still here watching, you have the patience to do it because this video got long. But in order to show you guys exactly how I do some of this stuff takes a while. I mean, I'm about an hour in from when I started, almost an hour from when I mixed the first epoxy. And by the time I cut this video down to where it's watchable, which I do try to do that, you know, it's going to be probably a 30-minute video. So for you guys that are still here, thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope you learned something. So anyway, that's it. Camo Marbling 101. Just let me know what you think in the comments down below. Again, ask me questions. That was the first couple days of questions after the original Q&A video. The ones I couldn't answer in a couple words here and there, back in an email or in comments. But I hope you like the question and answer series stuff. I'm really enjoying doing that. I hope you enjoy doing the camo here. I think it's going to turn out phenomenal. You guys will see it in the next video of this rod where we start doing wraps. What I would do next is it's going to be a little bumpy. So I'll put a couple coats of clear over it and then sand the clear back down where I get a flat finish without getting into the camo layer. And that's how you get the really smooth finish before you put your labels on. Not sure what I'll probably do. I'm not sure about label colors. I mean, this looks like gold, or gold over this will work great, but I don't know until we get them printed out and just lay them down over there. And when we do these labels, I do have a new method of putting labels down that I borrowed part of the method and came up with part of the method, and I had a subscriber that has a 3D printer and has printed part of the new method. It's a tool for me to use. It's a brayer, burnisher. It works great on labels. It's Marvin, and if he's up to it and wants to print some more, I'll put his contact info down in the link of that video so you guys can order one for yourself. I don't want anything to do with it other than I love the two I have. But we'll get into more of that when we get to putting the labels on this rod. So in the meantime, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.